Hi, I'm Bob Schrupp, physical therapist,
Brad Heineck, physical
and
therapist.
together we are the most famous physical therapists on the internet.
In our opinion, of course, Bob.
Brad, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about stress fractures, Bob. We're going to talk about stress fractures, how you get them, how you treat them, and how long it takes to get rid of them.
Generally, stress fractures of the lower extremities we're talking about, Brad?
Right, it's very common, and that's what we are going to talk about. They're typically below the knee, and those are the ones we're going to talk about. Oftentimes in the tibia, this big bone right here, excuse me if that hurts.
You see that right there?
Yeah, there we go. That big bone, it's the one that you hit right there. If you bump your knee or your shin into something, that's the one that hurts because it's tender to that kind of force. And then we're going to look at the foot, and we can have it in the navicular bone as a common one. What else is it you were talking
The
about?
metatarsals, I've seen them in young girls in the metatarsals, they call it the rays here, but yeah, very easy to, a lot of times in the fifth metatarsal, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth one on the outside here.
The one connected to the pinky toe?
Yeah.
Okay. So, symptoms. Well, how do you know if you've got a stress fracture? You know, Bob, you were talking before that sometimes the symptoms are consistent with shin splints.
Right. In fact, shin splints is a garbage can term. What they mean is, shin splints is used a lot of times to describe a whole bunch of disorders. And one of them is like a tibialis, the posterior tibialis becomes inflamed, and eventually, if it keeps pulling on the bone like it does, it becomes a stress fracture.
Sure.
So, shin splints could be a stress fracture is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
If you're feeling
Right.
pain in the shin, it could either be a stress fracture or it might become a stress fracture.
Sure. So, if you're a runner or you're out walking a lot, sometimes with a stress fracture, it's fine at first. The first quarter mile, half mile
Right.
feels fine, but by the time you get into your walk or your run halfway through it, or a mile or two, more pain and more pain to the point where you're limping. You can't even get
Yeah,
home.
and I think the whole thing about this is you can't ignore shin splints.
Right.
I mean, if you think that you're gonna tough it out and run through it, and
Right.
I've seen runners that have done this, and it became a stress fracture.
Sure.
I mean, there's just, I'm sorry, you can't ignore pain. You
Right.
have to figure out what's causing it and try to solve it.
Right, it becomes very uncomfortable. So stress
Yeah.
fracture, actually it is a fracture of the bone, but it's not like you broke the bone. It's just
Right.
very microscopic, so to speak, but they're very painful.
Quite often what's happening is you have two little, cells that are laying down bone and little cells that are absorbing bone, and the ones that are absorbing bone are working harder than the one that's laying down bone.
Sure.
And it can have to do with diet, and it can have to do with exertion if you're overworking.
Right. A lot of times, people who go from doing nothing or change their sports. Someone's swimming,
Exactly.
like my daughter, she went from swimming, now she's in basketball, she's getting pain in her knees right now.
Going from a non-weight bearing sport to a weight bearing
You
sport,
better
or just
believe it.
increasing your mileage too much with a walker or a runner.
Other symptoms, night pain, that might bother you at night. If it's really bad, it'll just be constant pain all the time, and it'll be point tenderness. You'll be able to go along your bone here, touch on your shin, and you'll find that spot that's very tender.
Yeah, I actually, on one of the girls that I diagnosed it on, I went on her foot and I actually just pushed on one of the metatarsals here, and I could feel the point pain there. And she had them before, so I knew there was a good chance she had them again, and she did, unfortunately.
Other thing, females, older females, you're more at risk for it because of osteoporosis. You typically have a higher risk for osteoporosis, so that the bones are not as...
Osteopenia or osteoporosis.
Sure, yeah. So if you do have it and you want to treat it, or you have those symptoms, you can treat it with the PRICE, P-R-I-C-E. You're going to protect it, rest it, ice it, elevate it.
And compression.
Sure. And just decrease weight bearing. You're going to have to get away from the activity that irritates
Yeah.
it. If it's real bad, you might have to have
That's
crutches.
really hard on runners, I'll tell you. And one of the things that we did with our runners is that when they were going through that period of time, we had them work out in water, then they actually could run in water.
Yeah.
And they have if you have access to, I mean, you can get a heck of a workout.
Sure,
So,
you better believe
my
it.
son's actually running in college now, and 2 days a week now, they don't run. They just do things like that in the pool.
Sure.
And they get a good workout, but I mean, their injury rate was very low this year.
Sure, you
So,
bet. Scans, a lot of times they'll do x-rays or CAT scans for it, but you go to the doctor by then. If you do have a stress fracture, it's not going to go away quickly. It's probably going to take 4 to 12 weeks, depending on how you treat it, before it goes away. So
Yeah,
there's
the bone's got to heal. There's just no way around it. Again, it's not this is not a good news scenario for someone who's a runner.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Right.
You mentioned the ibuprofen too, Brett?
Oh, yeah, you
With the
can,
inflammation.
you bet, for inflammation is part of the treatment. And if you go to the doctor, they're not gonna be able to do much for it.
No.
They're gonna say, keep the weight off. If it's in your ankle or little foot, they might give you one of those cam walkers, so you have one of those boots, you walk around like a club foot. So good luck if you think you've got one of these, but be careful, don't overdo
Yeah.
it, and, I don't know what to say, Bob.
I know, it's a sad one. All right, take care.